Hello, hi, this is Joe again. I'm not sure whether today you notice anything different about me or not. Okay, if you notice, you notice. If you never notice, also not important. It's not about me, it's about what I'm going to share today. Okay, so in my last episode, I shared about the HDB timeline, HDB financial calculation. So today, what I'm going to share is for private property in terms of the financial calculation and the timeline for private property. So if you compare the previous sharing and this sharing, you will notice that for private property, in terms of the calculation, in terms of the timeline, is so much easier. That's why some agents are out there, actually they don't want to do HDB because HDB is so complicated to the many agents out there. For private, it's actually much more straightforward. So nevertheless, for me, actually I do both lah. Okay, so I'm going to start my sharing now. Again, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so what you will see in my screen itself right now, right? Okay, it's very straightforward. Okay, I'm going to do an assumption that we are going to purchase this property at $1 million. Okay, so 1 million, of course, in today's context, truthfully, 1 million, I don't think you can buy a lot of things. Okay, truthfully, today property price is so high. So if you are talking about 1 million, if we are talking about the secondary market, even you want to get a 3-bedder, I think it's extremely tough. If you are talking about the primary market, 1 million can probably only get you 1-bedder. So nevertheless, for easy calculation, I'm using 1 million as a reference for today's sharing. So of course, I'm going to do an assumption that the valuation is 1 million as well. So basically, different from HDB, for private, the valuation is usually when we are interested in a particular property, then we will speak to the banker actually to get an indication of how much this bank can support in terms of the valuation. So personally, for me, usually I will try to get from a few banks, and do bear in mind that this valuation can have a different range across all the different banks. Okay, so and I'm going to do an assumption. Okay, based on this loan to value, right, I'm assuming that this buyer can get a full 75% loan, which is to say we are going to get a loan of 750K. Okay, so down payment with a loan to value of 75%, it means our down payment will be 25%. Okay, so of course, for those who are not following property market very closely, it might be a shock to you, because last time it used to be only 80% for so many years. Then suddenly now they changed to 75%, they dropped out the LTV. It's part of the cooling measures lately. So with a 25% down payment, okay, 5% got to be cash. Okay, 5% of 1 million straightforward, 50,000. Okay, and then the 20%, okay, of 200 grand, it can be paid in CPF or cash. Okay, but of course the earlier 5% is only cash only. Okay, so then you notice this buyer stamp duty 24,600. Okay, so it's based on a formula. Okay, because they also increased the stamp duty previously to maximum 3%, now to 4%. Anything that's above 1 million is basically 4%. The formula will be as such, is 4% minus 15,400. Okay, so and there's also a legal fees in place. So legal fees will very much depends on which law firm you use. Of course, again, this law firm got to be under the bank panel that you are using, and so much. So if you notice the top portion, only the 5% is compulsory cash. Then the other rest is you can use CPF if you want to. But do bear in mind, for this resale private property, right, for the buyer's stamp duty, you got to actually pay cash first. So when you are preparing your budget, right, do make sure that in terms of cash portion, you have this 5% cash plus the whichever stamp duty you require. Assuming if you want to use CPF, you can actually get the law firm to actually do a callback later, meaning to say initially you still have to pay cash, then after that they will use the CPF to refund back. Okay, so I think this is so much. So of course, if you are a PR or if you own more than one property, then you have to pay ABSD. So today I will not go into ABSD. I'll just go through a very simple case study. Okay, so next we will go into the timeline for the purchase. So for the timeline itself, if you see compared to HDB, it's very different. I got only 3 lines versus HDB got so many process. Okay, so very straightforward. You notice this only got OTP, option to purchase, exercise OTP, and then completion. That's it. Very straightforward. So for OTP itself, again, so the option fees itself, let's do an assumption that is going to be a 1%. Okay, 1% means you pay 10K. Then of course, usually the market practice is 2 weeks auction period. However, okay, it's different from HDB where it's standard 21 days. But for private, it can be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or more than that. But it's so-called negotiated between buyer and seller. So market practice is 2 weeks. Let's say if there's any special request, then of course 3 weeks, 4 weeks will depends on how the negotiation go. Okay, so with the OTP, of course, then the buyer can actually proceed to actually apply for the bank loan. Okay, but my recommendation is always before even entering OTP, do get an IPA. Do speak to the banker to get an IPA, in principle approval, so that you will know how much your loan can actually goes up to. Because some of my clients previously, when they go and view house, they never do IPA one. So suddenly they got a shock when they realized they cannot actually get the loan they wanted. So that's something quite sad after you do so many viewing. And truthfully, if you tell me don't waste the seller time, don't waste the agent time, at least you do some homework before you go out for viewing. Okay, so once with this OTP, you can apply for the bank loan. And bank loan usually take between, I would say 2 days to 7 days to be out. Usually local bank are faster, foreign bank usually take slightly longer. So when the LO is out, actually you can proceed to exercise where you pay the other 4%, which is around 40,000. Okay, so having said this, it need not be a 1% and 4%. It can be also a 2% plus 3%, 3% plus 2%. Okay, so nevertheless, this is the 5% cash which is actually indicated earlier. So after exercising of the, okay, before going this, for private is different from HDB. You don't need the letter of offer in order to exercise the OTP. In fact, you can even exercise the OTP without a letter of offer. But personally, I wouldn't suggest that. I would suggest that you get your loan sorted out before you exercise. Make sure you get a proper letter of offer from the bank before you exercise. I feel it's safer for you. Okay, so after exercising, okay, you'll notice that within the next 14 days, okay, this is where you're supposed to pay your buyer's stamp duties. Okay, in fact, only the 1% is actually paid to the seller directly. Usually the 4%, right, depends. In some of the minor case is paid to the seller directly, but most of the case we actually pay to the law firm conveyancing account, but it really depends on how the negotiation turns out. Okay, so usually the exercise of OTP will be done at the buyer's law firm. And then usually at this point of time, they will also ask you to prepare the buyer's stamp duty. Of course, you can pay one more trip there, or you can also prepare a check earlier if you want to. So with this, right, okay, from exercise to completion period, okay, there is also no standard, but usually the market practice, okay, usually market practice is between 10 to 12 weeks. Okay, I mean, of course, everyone got their own logic, so I'll just tell you this is some of the common practice. We can also try to make it like below 10 weeks if the law firm and seller can do. It really depends on negotiation. And also above 12 weeks, like 13 weeks, 14 weeks, even 20 weeks, all these are part of the so-called negotiation, apart from the price before you even enter in OTP, because all this information got to be filled in to the auction to purchase. Okay, so during the completion, or rather before the completion, is where you pay the balance 20%. Be it, is it cash or CPF? And of course, the legal fees usually you will pay during your visit to the law firm. And the visit to the law firm is usually, as mentioned earlier, during the exercise of the OTP. So with this, I think is pretty much very straightforward. So it doesn't mean for private there's no extension, there's no rent back, because HDB private is unlike HDB where you cannot do a formal renting back. For HDB, they do extension stay. Okay, so for private, after you sell, you can rent back to the buyer, or there can be also an extension stay. So all this got to be inserted into the OTP accordingly when you so-called close the case. So with this, actually, I have come to an end of the sharing. Okay, and importantly is if you notice, you need to know all these things. The key thing is the next topic that I'm going into, okay, will be to mention about back-to-back deals, meaning to say you sell one property and buy one property. How do we actually plan the timeline? Okay, so that's why it's important to know the basic of each timeline, the sell timeline, the buying timeline, so that we can plan accordingly. So usually is when you engage me, of course, all these things will be covered by me. Okay, and I hope you have enjoyed the sharing. Do help me to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, and bye-bye.